Greetings, globeheads and flurfers. You know, one of the biggest problems with debunking the flat earth model, actually not one of, but the biggest problem debunking the flat earth model is that there is no flat earth model. But this is also the biggest problem with the flat earth. You see, the reason why there is a globe model is because we've made observations, we've made calculations, we've made extrapolations, we've done this thing called science, and everything works out in one working model that fits everything. There's a very good reason there is no flat earth model, and that's that when you try to create one, things don't work out. If you put the sun over here, then your calculations don't fit right over there. And if you put the moon over here, then over here it's at the wrong angle, and things just don't add up. And so there is no flat earth model. But this causes a problem for us debunkers because flat earthers use this as a quick get out of jail free card. You see, if you take a certain aspect of the flat earth and you debunk it, there's going to be some flat earther that comes along and says, well, that's not what I believe, so therefore you're making a straw man argument. See, because the globe reality is based on a model, we all, those of us who believe in the globe reality, we all pretty much believe the same things. Everything matches up. Because there is no flat earth model, however many flat earthers there are, this is how many different flat earth beliefs there are. And so I understand that. And I understand that some of the things that I debunk may be things that certain flat earthers don't believe in. But I try to stick to things that the majority or that many of them believe. Now, one of these issues is the question of why other heavenly bodies are spheres. Now, one of the big globe earther arguments that I've heard is, well, the sun is a sphere, the moon is a sphere, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, these are all spheres. Why wouldn't Earth be a sphere? And I know that one of the flat earth counter arguments to this is the really, really ridiculous analogy that goes like this. That's like saying that just because all the pool balls are spheres, the pool table should be a sphere. Well, here's why this is one of the dumbest analogies that I've ever heard. You see, the pool table is not anything like the Earth in this analogy. The pool table is more analogous to space, where these heavenly bodies exist. There's nobody arguing that space is a sphere. So why would you say, just because all these heavenly bodies are a sphere, you're assuming that space is a sphere? That wouldn't make sense. If you're going to make the Earth analogous to something along the lines of pool, it would make more sense to say, just because all the colored balls are spheres, you're going to assume that the cue ball is a sphere. That would be an analogy that makes sense, but comparing the Earth to a pool table, utter nonsense. However, there are flat earthers out there who actually believe that the moon and the sun and so forth are not spheres, and they make this argument. They make the argument that just because they're round doesn't mean they're spheres. You can look at a circle. It's round. You can look at a sphere. It's round. Well, here's the problem with that. If you are a flat earther, and if, like most flat earthers, you believe the sun is somewhere between, or the moon is somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 kilometers up in the sky, then people on the Earth throughout the day look at the moon from different angles. From quite a bit different angles, in fact. Let's say that you're in France and you're watching the moon set. Well, at that time, the moon is at zenith, or straight up above the Americas. So let's say you're in Kansas City and the moon is up straight up in the sky, and you see this. Well, then the people in France would more likely see something like this, and they don't. So your argument that the moon is both a disk and is close, 3 to 5,000 kilometers away, doesn't hold water. However, there's sort of a straw man nature to that argument that I just made, and here's why. Because in reality, we actually do all see the same side of the moon. We all see the same side of the moon with very, 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 very little change in angle at all, because the moon is 238,000 miles away, and because it's tidally locked to the Earth. Now, I've heard this argument, flat earthers make, that's ridiculous. What are the odds that the moon is spinning in just such a way that it always faces the Earth with the same size? That's ridiculous. Well, that's called an argument based on incredulity, which is not a valid argument. But there's a reason why. It's not an accident that the moon is tidally locked to the Earth. You see, it's the same reason that we have tides on the Earth. Gravity is strongest when you're closest to the object and weaker as you get further away. When you have objects as big as the Earth and the moon, the gravitational pull of the other body is actually stronger on the side facing the other body than it is on the side away from it. For example, the Earth is so massive that the moon's gravitational pull on the side of the Earth facing the moon is stronger than its gravitational pull at the other side of the Earth, and therefore we get tides. Same thing happens on the moon. You get a bulge on the side facing the moon, facing the Earth, and gravity will literally lock onto that bulge and slow down the spin of the moon until it matches where that side always faces the Earth. That's what we call tidal locking, and it's not really an entirely uncommon thing. But despite the fact that the moon is tidally locked to the Earth and is quite a bit further away than flat earthers think, we still know that the moon is a globe. And how do we know this? Well, because we can see the sun shining on part of the moon and not on the other parts. And we can see the globe shape in that. If the sun is behind us and the moon's in front of us and the sun's shining, so to speak, over our shoulder on the moon, we see a full moon. On those rare occasions when they're perfectly aligned, we see a lunar eclipse, but more often they're not quite perfectly aligned. The sun is behind us, the moon is in front of us, we see a full moon. When the moon is between us and the sun, we see a new moon, which means the sun is shining on the back side of the moon, and the side we see is not lit. Needless to say, for obvious reasons, the new moon is mostly in the sky during the day, and we hardly notice it at all. And then we see the sun shining on one side or the other of the moon based on the other phases of the moon. And we can often look, and if you look closely, you can see the entire moon, even though only a part of it is lit. It's very obvious if you look at the moon and you look at the shape and how the sun is reflecting off of it. It is very, very obviously a sphere. Despite what the flat earthers tell you, but most importantly, based on their quote-unquote model on this of a close moon, it would be impossible in their model for you to see round, no matter where you were on Earth, if their moon was in fact a disk. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. And be careful Don't fall for the snake oil salesman out there on YouTube.